Welcome to the Talking Dad podcast.
Welcome to the Talking Dad podcast.
Try one more. Welcome to the Talking Dad podcast.
Welcome to the Talking Dad podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Talking Dad podcast. The podcast where we discuss all things dad, fatherhood, parenting and men's mental health. Please check out the podcast show notes where you'll find all links for social media and the Patreon page. I hope you enjoy this episode and thanks for listening. So yesterday before we came camping, what were the things you were looking forward to?
I was looking forward to playing football with my daddy and going in the tent and having a look.
Having a look in the tent?
Yeah.
Right. So when we got here, so this is the day after, so what were the things that you actually liked?
I actually liked playing football together and kicking the ball to each other, and I liked doing colouring with Daddy.
We did some colouring in the tent and some drawing, didn't we?
Yeah.
Did you like the tent?
Yeah.
What did you think about the tent?
I liked the tent.
Was it comfortable?
Yeah, the tent was comfortable and it was full of exciting things.
Okay. What about some of the things that maybe weren't as fun? Is there anything you would say then? Was it maybe that it was cold last night?
Yeah.
So we got a bit chilly in the tent, didn't we? And it was difficult to keep warm. Yeah?
And my feet.
Your feet were cold, weren't they? And do you think it's a bit different to being at home? So when you woke up, normally at home you'd be able to get breakfast straight away, or you'd be able to watch telly or play on your Switch.
Yeah.
You couldn't do any of that, could you?
No.
So you had to wait, didn't you? Did you like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
You liked it?
Yeah.
So it was a bit different. Do you think you'll go camping again?
No. Yeah.
Yeah? Are you sure?
Yeah.
Where? When?
I would only come if you had 3 pair of socks on because my feet are freezing.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I think Daddy needs a better sleeping bag as well to keep him warmer.
Yeah.
Yeah? So was it a success? Was it a good thing?
Yeah.
Yeah? Welcome back to the Talking Dad podcast. As you will have heard at the beginning of the episode there's a little bit of a Q&A between myself and my 6-year-old son because we went away on his first camping trip. So this story begins, I suppose, a little bit of a way back. Back in July 2022, I went on a hike up Helvellyn in the Lake District with a few friends. You may have seen the YouTube video of this. If you have, thank you very much. If not, check out YouTube. There's a couple of our hikes. I recorded a few walkthroughs just to kind of follow the trail so that people can see the actual walking trail of generally where most people use these trails rather than the more experienced hikers, I would say. So during that trip, we went up Helvellyn, and the plan was we were going to come down and stay at a nearby campsite. So we got a big tent that would house all 8 of us, I think it was, between 6 and 8, and that's where we were going to spend the night. We were going to have a little barbecue, a couple of beers, that kind of thing, and then get in the tent and whatever, ready for the next day before we came home. So after Helvellyn, or during Helvellyn, it was a wet and windy day, and we were all soaked to the bone pretty much when we got back. It took us quite a while to get down, and I don't think any of us really were in the mood to spend the night camping, especially if it was going to carry on raining and probably be a bit cold, and we didn't really have anywhere to dry our kit, and it just wasn't ideal. So we bailed on that idea and came home. So along the time between then and now, we've been talking about potential hikes and camps along the way. But rather than take a massive tent that would house all of us, we thought that the couple of people that were interested in the camp would take a tent, and then we have the option but it's easy to transport and carry around. And if we decided to do it properly, then it would fit in the hiking backpack. So I didn't want to spend all the money on a brand new one, because there's no guarantee that I'm actually going to turn up and do this yet. So I've been scouting about on second-hand sites and just trying my luck, really. So I found a second-hand OEX Fox 2, which I believe is at least quite a good starter tent for a hike camp. I think it probably is listed as a 2-man tent, but we were quite snug, and there was me and my son in there. If you're on your own, you and your kit and your backpack and everything will fit in there quite comfortably. But 2 adults, maybe it'll be a bit of a tight squeeze. But I suppose if it's cold, you might not think that that's a bad thing. So I got that second hand off eBay, and it's been sat under the dining table for a couple of months. And I thought, I'm going to have to try and use this somewhere and test it, because if I turn up for my camp/hike and it's no good, or it's got a hole in it, then I'm going to be stuffed. I didn't even get it out of the bag, because I just thought there's no point unravelling it all in the kitchen, and the weather hasn't been great outside, so I've never actually found a time where I could have got it outside without it already raining or it was about to rain. So I thought the perfect time would be, why not go out and test it myself, just a local campsite nearby or something like that. And then I had the idea of taking my son with me, my 6-year-old, which then would be his first camping trip. And I thought, beginning of the Easter holidays, it would give us something to do, something to look forward to, and we'll test it out, see how it works. And I've been sort of angling and asking my wife if she'd be interested in camping at some point, because it's easy to get away and it can be cheaper option, although some campsites are charging quite a lot more than I was expecting them to. So we thought we'd try it, and he was really up for it, not really understanding what it fully entailed. So we went off to a campsite nearby, over in Whitchurch, Marbury Camp and Lodge, I think it was called off the top of my head. It's basically a big field. They do a section where it's tents, and you can have an option of a certain amount of them can be electric hookup, and then the other half is for caravans. And they did have some glamping pods on there as well, but that were a bit further away over the hill. So my idea was that we would turn up, we'd have like an afternoon pottering about in the field. I was going to try and find a decent walk for us on the way, or something we could stop off at. Didn't manage to do that, just because of time, really. And by the time we'd got everything packed up and ready to come away, we didn't have that much time left. Now, I will say this. Considering we only went for one night, you would think that would be fairly easy to plan and organise. But I've got to tell you, it was still quite stressful. Just trying to figure out everything I needed, and packing up the car and making sure he had everything he needed. He wanted to take things that he just wouldn't fit and couldn't take in a tent. And then by the time I'd unpacked certain things, put them away and turned around, he'd packed something else that he couldn't take. So it was a bit of a stressful morning. And I'd been working the week up to it, and I didn't really give myself enough time to pack and get going. So anyway, we got there and we started to set the tent up, which was all exciting. But it was exciting for me because it's my new tent and I haven't been camping for a long while, so I get to set the tent up and see if it's all there and all working. And for my son, because it's his first real tent to set up and first camping trip, apart from we did set a tent up in the garden at one point last year, which he loved climbing in and out of. So we set the tent up, everything was there, it was all fine, it was all set up. And then we spent sort of 2 hours really just playing football around the field. It was quite good because there was a couple of other families there in sort of really big family-sized tents with all the gear and electric hookup. They're pulling in little portable radiators out of the boot. They had all the deck chairs, the folding table, the ovens and stoves and all sorts. So we just had a cool box with some food in, the tent, our sleeping bags, clothes, some toiletry stuff, and then a little, the little portable gas canister stove. And then I'd already sort of pre-made some spaghetti bolognese that we just took with us because I thought I could just heat that up in the pan, all in one pan, and it's easy for cleaning. And I know my son really likes that; it's his favourite meal. So I didn't really know what else we could do, because I just thought, I can't go camping and then him turn around and say, well, I don't like that and I'm not eating it, and then he may be hungry all night. So I just planned something that was easy and quick and that I know he likes. So like I say, we played football for about 2 hours. We had a wander around the field and the campsite, and it's in a sort of bit of a valley, and it was all sort of farmland around us. So there was loads of sheep in the field and some cows and stuff. Been across to the toilet block several times just because I think he was bored and just liked to look in a new place. And then we were obviously setting up the cooking, the stove to warm some food up, and we got him involved in that, and he did a bit of that. We took some colouring books and some drawing books, and we got in the tent. It did start raining at one point, so there was a bit of a shower, so we had to get in the tent. And we did some colouring and some drawing, and that was fun. We enjoyed that. As I say, you will have heard that at the beginning.
Support my dad on Patreon so he can pay for the electric to charge my Switch. Thank you.
Then the downside was that it was cold. At night time it was cold. And I don't know if it's maybe the tent in general, because the tent is like an inner tent that's all sort of fly screen, and then the waterproof sheet on the bottom. And then the second part is like the waterproof sheet that goes over the top, like the canopy. And then that all sort of pegs down and straps down. So maybe I didn't quite get that fully square, so there was a bit of a gap on one side. But if you were wild camping or you were just on a solo hike camp, and I had the correct sleeping bag, because I need to upgrade my sleeping bag really, as well as having a decent sleep mat, like an inflatable one, I think it might have been okay. But because there was 2 of us, there wasn't that massive amount of room, so we just had a couple of roll mats on some like foam interlocking mats that I used to have in the garage that I just stuck in the car, because I just thought we might need that for some extra warmth against the grass underneath. So there was possibly a slight gap in the sort of grass and the outer waterproof sheet that made a little draft. Generally we had sleeping bag each, a couple of blankets, and we went to bed with sort of clothes and with pyjamas underneath the clothes for my son. So we were sort of wrapped up fairly tight. I think he was warmer than I was, and my sleeping bag was, like I say, it's a bit of an older one and I need to upgrade. I just couldn't quite get comfortable. And I think I've realised that, when I think back to going camping, I was like a teenager when I used to camp fairly regularly, and I'm not anymore. So you get a little bit more stiff in your back and your hips when you've been sleeping on the hard floor for a night. So it's I do need to upgrade and get a bit of comfort. And so my son, like you will have heard, that the only thing he didn't really like was the sort of night time when it was very cold, and we did get up early. We scrapped the bacon butties that I was planning to make in the morning, just made a cup of tea, and then sort of packed everything down and got ready to come home. It was only sort of 20 minutes from home, so it didn't take long at all, but I think we'd both kind of a bit cold, and the cold had seeped in, and by that point you just want to sort of get in the warmth again, don't you? So for his first camping trip, I think it was a success. I think he liked it. I think he'd like to come again, particularly if we upgrade a little bit on a bit of the kit. I've tried to sort of convince my wife to give it a go, but then the youngest is only coming up to 2, so he's a bit small maybe. He's not sleeping perfectly in the night time just yet, so maybe it's a bit early. I could definitely see maybe next summer it could be something that we're trying. And who knows, we might have a bigger tent by then and a bit more kit. We could have electric hookup, and we could be the ones that are taking the little radiator in the boot and plug that in and everything, with the fridge and all the kit that they had. But then I imagine the amount of money they must have spent on their camping kit would probably be as much as it would have cost to go on holiday for a year. But I suppose the upside to that is that you've always got the kit, so it can be reused. You're not spending $1,000 every year just to go on holiday, I suppose. Overall, I would say it went well and it was a success. It was something to do in the Easter holidays. It broke the week up a little bit. We were looking forward to it. It wasn't too bad. We didn't get washed out by rain or anything, so it was a success. And I might update you if I actually get round to doing a hike camp and test out this tent on my own with a bit of upgraded kit. I'll update you on that when that happens and see if my night on my own is any better, because I suppose when you take the kids, you're always kind of like preoccupied and worried about how they are, whether they're warm enough and what they're doing, whereas when I go with my mates, it's just going to be me. I've just got to look after myself, and obviously I can warm myself up fairly easily by taking some extra clothes and things like that, or, you know, I can kind of just hunker down into my sleeping bag, zip it all up and not move for the night, whereas obviously with the kids you've got to just be mindful that they're warm and they've got everything they need. So I suppose I didn't sleep as well because of that. And what have we got coming up in terms of Talking Dad podcast? Well, by the time this episode comes out, we're probably looking at the end of April, so I'll be lining up maybe 2 or 3 more guests in before summer so that I can get some guest episodes out, 1 or 2 solo episodes, and then we'll be taking a break over the summer holidays and a little break for Talking Dad. I'll still be active on social media and possibly on the blog, but in terms of releasing podcasts and sort of trying to promote them and push them, we'll be taking a little break. So it gives me some opportunity to work on some other stuff and spend some time with the family. This podcast is part of the Lone Wolves Collective, which is a new website that I'm involved with and building with podcast friend Rob Jones, who's been on this podcast numerous times. So the idea is that we're creating a new home for independent creators, and it's a place where we can share all of our stuff, all of our blogs, all of our podcasts, and promote all of our stuff so we're not as reliant on social media. And hopefully in the future that will also give us a chance to interact and sort of promote and push and work with some other independent creators, which is something I'm looking forward to doing. And of course, you can support the podcast on Patreon, and you can check out the link in the show notes to find the link for Patreon and check out the tiers that we've got going on there. One-off donations are available, or you can sign up to one of the tiers on a monthly fee. And hopefully I could bring you some extra content and some behind-the-scenes stuff that I might be able to put up there as a bit of an incentive to get people going. It's a bit of a slow slog and a bit of a slow process, so there's not a massive amount going on there yet, but obviously as soon as that starts to pick up a little bit, then I will be including more content on there and more stuff for you. You can check out my other podcast, Man Cave Beers Podcast, which is part of Jamie's Man Cave. That's where I do all my homebrew, I do my beer reviews, generally talk about beer industry and other kind of man cave hobby type content. Links for that will be in the show notes as well. And the Last Exit on Mainstream podcast that I do with Rob, where we talk about pop culture adjacent topics. So we might pick a film, TV or documentary, and we'll sort of delve into the background of that, delve a bit deeper and pick up on the sort of threads that link through and into pop culture and how it affects society and pop culture, and we'll just sort of go deeper into our thoughts on it, a bit of a rabbit hole really. The latest one at time of recording this podcast is the 27 Club, where we talked about the 27 Club Gone Too Soon documentary that's on Netflix. Also our thoughts around the artists that are involved in the 27 Club and our thoughts around that. Coming up, we've got episodes around wrestling, so like WrestleMania, WWE, but also the indie wrestling scene, and also we'll have an episode covering video game to movies, movies to video games, that whole genre of film and video game sort of crossover type stuff. Thanks again for listening to this podcast, and I will speak to you on the next one. Thank you.